Hi, my name is Paweł Spechalski, and today let's have a nice talk about how to begin your adventure with the long-range flying. With airplanes, drones, it doesn't really matter. Long range, in this video, for me the long range will be everything that's actually behind the line of sight. The FPV flight with distance from you of, let's say, at least 500 meters, quarter mile, slightly, maybe even slightly further, definitely above 1 kilometer. I know 1 kilometer is not really that far, but trust me, when you are 1 kilometer away from yourself somewhere on the meadow, you do not see yourself. With the cameras, FPV cameras we are using currently, the distance in which you can see yourself, it's like 100 meters, maybe if you have really very good sight and you like guessing, maybe 200 meters behind, above this distance, you will not see yourself. And this, plus the distance, plus the conditions outside and few other things that might happen during the flight, require you to, let's say, think a little of what might happen. And trust me, this is completely different than racing around the track somewhere very close to you, because I always get stressed. It's like, will I fall, will I not fall? Okay, thing number one that you really have to consider and take care when you start flying long range is the hardware. You have to trust your hardware. This means you should not build something new and just put it into the air and start doing kilometers of the distance, because if you do not trust the hardware, if the hardware was not really proven, it might fail rapidly. Most of the electrical failures or structural failures or something because you fucked up during the build of the drone or the airplane will surface itself in the first, let's say, 5 flights. If the thing survived the 5 flights, it should survive really a lot. So take your time. Take your time, and first flights, never try doing long distance, because you never know what's gonna happen, and losing your craft somewhere or having to search for it the whole day is really like not really worth it. It's better to be prepared. This is number one. Number two, it's something what I said already. From 500 meters, quarter mile, you cannot see yourself. That means that you have to be prepared to be able to go back to you. What does it mean? The most obvious thing, you need the GPS and you need the OSD. With the OSD that displays the direction to home arrow at least. So when you are flying and you want to go back, you can use this arrow as at least basic information in which direction you should be flying. Because trust me, you will lose orientation, especially in the place when you are flying for the first, maybe second, even third time, or in the higher distance. Yeah, I know some people say that, yeah, they can feel they will turn away and turn around and they will go home. Yes or no, or if you will be lucky. So make sure that you have direction to home arrow on your OSD, and also it's a good idea to have the current GPS coordinates on your on your OSD. Not to be able to go back, but if you are doing the DVR and you will crash, this is really the best way to at least find the area where you crashed. Better than telemetry. This is much better than telemetry, because not only you will see the coordinates and you will be able to enter them in the Google Maps, but also you'll be able to observe in which direction you were flying, so what might have happened and where you should start looking. But okay, this is, let's say, the worst case scenario that you lost your craft. Next, you should also have the actual heading on your OSD, because this will also help you to orientate. For example, you were flying east, now you have to go back, so the direction was flying away was 90 degrees, going back, am I doing? Yeah, east is 90 degrees. Going west to go back, you should go to 120. Useful stuff. It's not taking a lot of space in the OSD, and it's really worth to have. On top of that, in case of crash, your vehicle should be equipped with some kind of a helper how to locate it. The best, the simplest, and the most used, of course, is a buzzer, loud buzzer, and preferably with own power source, own battery that will be making a loud noise even when the main battery will disconnect or just go down. It's really worth investing in something like that when you are at least trying to fly at long range. What else? Also, different radio beacons might be an option. I'm working on a beacon right now, so it will be available for do-it-yourselfers, but not yet. Hardware. Okay, I think we got the hardware covered more or less, at least on the not so obvious levels. The obvious levels, of course, there is the RC link. 2.4 gigahertz. In the perfect conditions, you should be able to go like 1-2 kilometers without a problem, but this is really like pushing to the limit. If you want to think about going long range, you should invest in something working in the lower frequency, like TBS Crossfire or FrSky Air 9, or if you really want to be like Pro, maybe a Dragon Link or something working on the 433 megahertz range. It's really like going your kilometers, shitload of distance, and you almost have a guarantee that your RC link will not die before your FPV link. And while we are talking about the FPV link, it's tempting. It might be tempting to go into 1.2 gigahertz, but if you do not really want to fly like 10 kilometers away, the 1.2 kilohertz might be really a slight overkill. Truth to be told, the 5.8 gigahertz receiver on a decent altitude and good antennas, for example, of course, good omnidirectional antenna on the UAV and the directional, let's say, crosshair or the helical on your goggles, even on your goggles, which can act like a head tracker because you can always move your head, should give you a range of around at least 5 kilometers on the 5.8 gigahertz without using any external antenna trackers with the powers of, let's say, 500 milliwatts, 800 milliwatts. Really, you do not need more if you do it right with 5.8 gigahertz. If you really want to go slightly more hardcore and have an antenna tracker with really tight beam directional antennas, you can go really kilometers. Recently I saw a video where someone did like 40 kilometers on the 5.8, so this is really doable. You do not have to really migrate to 1.2, and if really tops you want to do, you can do is up to 5 kilometers. There's really no need to invest in 1.2 gigahertz video systems. What next? Oh yeah, very important thing. Know where you are flying. That means you have to more or less know the topology of the area where you'll be flying. You should know in advance from where you will take off and in which direction you will fly. Google Maps. Just use Google Maps. Find a good place, find a good direction when there's nothing there. The terrain is more or less safe from flying over people, over cities, over airports or anything like that. You do not want to do that, absolutely. And also find a starting place, the place where you will take off, that is nice and easy and good, well visible from above. That means it's a good idea to start in a place that's close to a characteristic landmark. I don't know, a small lake or, for example, characteristic hill or a building or something like that, that will be visible from a distance. In my favorite spot, like a few hundred meters from me, there is really nice big white building on the middle of a meadow, and it's really very easy to see from the distance. So even if I'm like distracted by something, I can always find the direction home. Other good places are roads, especially bendy with a lot of turns roads, when you can like fly back using the road, or a small forest or something like that. Flying, taking off from the middle of a meadow is probably not the best idea, because it's meadow, which meadow I started from. So not the best idea, but really you have to prepare, you have to take a look at the photographs from the above, at the map, to really know where you are flying and to plan your route. For example, you have a good route going, let's say, east, because there has to be a civilization on the east. Okay, if you're not from Poland, you probably don't know that joke, but never mind. East. You are on the field you will be taking off from, and you are looking at east. You will be flying at east. Take a look from which direction the wind is blowing and how strong the wind is. Because if the wind is blowing from the north towards south, you, while flying east, you will be drifting also south. That means when you will go back, you will not have to go east, but you will have to go northeast, northwest to go home. If, for example, you are flying with the wind, your speed will be, ground speed will be much higher, well, going there than going back. So you also have to remember that you have to have some more battery to go back, or stuff like that. The battery, flying half a battery and then turning around and flying the second half a battery probably will get you lost somewhere, because you have to have the reserve for something that might happen, like the wind, because you have to go into the wind to go back, and that will eat a lot of more of the battery. So really also think about this, and let's say a safe assumption, if you do not really have a perfect conditions, do not want to go hardcore, is when flying one way, use only a third of the battery if you are not flying against the wind. If you are flying against the wind, then you might go to up to half, but if you are not flying against the wind, use up to 1/3 of the battery for going there, because then you will have another third of the battery for going back. If you will be going against the wind, you will still have another third of the battery and some battery left to do some maneuvers before landing, because, for example, you have to set yourself into the wind or something like that. You never really know what might happen, and you don't want your battery to run flat a kilometer or even 500 meters from you on the low altitude. Oh, and the last tip for the beginning of the long ranging: altitude. You have to keep your altitude, because how the radio waves propagates means that you will never do kilometers of range while flying very low to the ground, because every obstacle, every tree, a hill, or even without this, the thing is called the Fresnel zones, will interfere with your radio. You have to have some extra altitude for every kilometer of distance. The safe, let's say the safe rule of the thumb is to have a 10% of the altitude extra comparing to the distance. So if you are at the 1 kilometer distance, you should have around 100 meters of altitude. At 2 kilometers, 200 meters. Of course, you do not really want to go 5 kilometers above 150, or you can, who knows? But you really have to keep in mind that while going further away, you also should be flying higher to make sure that your radio systems will be working. Okay, this video turned out to be slightly longer than I expected, like usual. I hope you find you, by you, I mean you who are thinking about beginning with the long-range flying or just are beginning with the long-range flying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert in the long range, but I have enough hours in the air to know this and that, and to really realize that in 2 kilometers distance you will not see from where you took off, and that battery might run flat and your airplane might crash somewhere. So think. First of all, always turn on thinking, plan, know your hardware, know your ground, know some basic stuff, and then you should be fine. Okay, that's all for today. Until the next one. Bye bye.